All right. Well, I'm really glad to be here today with my friend Kenneth Stephen. He's someone that I haven't connected with a whole lot, but we had a quick chat and we've connected in the comments on Facebook. And we had a fun idea for a poetry experiment that we're going to do here together. And I think you all are going to love it. Um, Kenneth and I each brought three of our own poems that we wrote. And the plan is to take turns reading them and then to talk about them. And we want to make sure that we don't just read the poems and move on, but that we give each one a chance to speak and to have us sort of digest it and be with it before we move on. I think that's something Kenneth suggested and that I resonated with. But before we start, I'll pass it over to you, Kenneth. Everybody probably knows me already. Although you might be curious about a bit of my background, so maybe I'll introduce myself a little bit if you want. Yeah.
Please, yeah, do.
So I have a bit of a unique background, or quite a unique background, I guess. I grew up Quaker, at a traditional rural Quaker meeting with gray walls. We didn't have horse and buggy, but I did live on a farm, and some of my friends had horse and buggies and lived on farms. We had TV in a car and stuff, but spent a lot of time on farms and horses and stuff as a kid. But I also grew up because Quakers, at least in Canada, are very liberal, and so I was Quaker slash neo-pagan and Wiccan. And so I grew up. My first experience as being a spiritual leader was actually as a kid leading Wiccan circles, trying to do astral projection and stuff as a kid. Um, it
Wow.
was, I don't do that sort of thing anymore. I'm not against it. It's just not the path that I have now. But that's a different thing. But then I also
Interesting.
spent a lot of time in Indigenous ceremony. So I went to my first sweat lodge when I was 12, and my earliest memories are at like smudging at home with my mom and stuff because she was a hippie who was into all that kind of stuff. And um, through my teens, I went to ceremony fairly often. Like I went to one big event every year, basically, like once in the summer kind of thing. But then in my 20s, I became a Skabewish to an elder, and Skabewish is a word that means helper, but it also has a sort of connotation of like a deacon, ceremonial assistant, apprentice, all kind of wrapped up in there in the word helper. Um, and so I did that very intensely for about 10 years, fasting and doing all the different ceremonies and initiation rituals and helping other people go through those processes and leading healing events for people with addictions and trauma and stuff like that. And I was very, very involved in that for a long time. And then eventually I switched, which is a story that's too much for today, but you can find it in one of my other videos. I'm sure I've shared it somewhere. But I switched my way over into Christianity, and I had a church for a little while as a seminarian with a student placement, but I'm not good at school, and I dropped out. And then I started my online ministry. I took my old sermons and I put them up as a blog while I was working at a call center when I left the church, and people liked them. And so I just kept going. And then COVID hit, and it was good for an online church
Mm.
for COVID. Not that I ever would have wished it, but everyone said, "How do we do church online? We're stuck inside and we don't know how." And I said, "Well, I've already built it, so why don't you just come on in?"
Mhm.
And with that momentum, it kept going. And now that's what I do for my living, and my thing that's my vocation in my ministry. And there's lots of people who help me with that, of course. And we're all doing it together. But that's kind of my
Wonderful.
background
Thank
and
you.
what I'm bringing
Thank
with
you.
me.
That's
Yeah.
really valuable. I'm going to start at a different point, actually, Justin, because of what you've said and because I'm so intrigued by it. And it's really valuable you're starting because I now know a whole lot more than I did before, which is somewhat to my shame. But there we are. I will say to begin with that my beloved half sister Helen, who is no longer in this world, was very much a Quaker, and uh, she and her she and her partner Ellen were strong Quakers. Helen became a Quaker through Vietnam. So I said she was my half sister. She was a good deal older than me, and she was in Vietnam, helping the cause. however you want to interpret that. She and Ellen simply went there to be hands, as people might perhaps go today to Palestine in order to try to do something to alleviate suffering. That was what she did, and she came back, and Quakerism changed her life. She was, for many years, the justice and peace worker for the Iona community. She was the only justice and peace worker they've ever had, actually. And so non-violence was very much at the heart of her life. Non-violent Quaker activism and Gandhian activism. So I've started with Helen's story, but there's no harm in that. I grew up in an extremely conservative family, evangelical Christians. So it was quite a tough upbringing, I would say. I won't go into that in great detail because I don't think it's of relevance. But I feel the way I would describe it is that I've been trying to get out from under the shadow of evangelical Christianity ever since. And it's left quite a lot of scars, quite frankly, a lot of marks. And, well, I mean, Iona discovered in inverted commas. It's like Columbus discovering America. I personally came to Iona through my family, through my mother, for whom it was hugely special and important from a faith perspective. And then Helen, my sister, about whom I've spoken, was justice and peace worker there. So I was visiting Helen when she was on the island. Then I came to it later as a professional writer and was leading writing retreats there and starting to write about Iona and about my experience of Iona. And that was the start of a pathway that's continued ever since, because with my wife, Christina, we have led Celtic Christian retreats on the island for the last 10 years. This October will be the last one. But to come to this, more and more of my writing, I would say, is within that path, that Celtic Christian Iona path, in one way or another. So I would describe it as deeply spiritual, a lot of it, but less formally religious, and probably less formally religious all the time. And that doesn't feel bad. So this is just a waiver book, if I may, Justin, if I'm allowed to do that. This is a volume of my selected poems called Atlantic, with a picture of Skellig Michael from Ireland at the bottom, appropriately
I'm
enough.
going to spoiling the camera and leave it for a few seconds so everybody gets a good look.
Yeah,
Oh, there you
sure.
go. Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, a
Yeah,
lovely
perfect.
picture. So that's been quite a culmination. That's really, it makes me feel very old, but it's 35 years of work really condensed into that volume, and many collections of poems. So enough said. Enough.
Well, I'm curious about your Iona connection. That's a piece that resonates for me. And I don't know if we can work it into our conversation at some point, but I would love to hear how the island itself has impacted your spirituality and your poetry. That's a question that I love. I read about Saint Columba and his poetry, um, and his love for the island itself, and
Mm.
and stuff. Especially when you read the story of his life from Avignon, and I I read all of that old stuff a lot. So I'm really interested in all of that.
Have you
Um,
been to Iona yourself, Justin?
I haven't been anywhere but Canada and the US. I've never left the
Mm.
continent. So I haven't been there. I would love to. I have some people there I'd like to visit, and I'd love to see the island itself. In my own sort of nuanced is the wrong word. Syncretist is the word I was looking for. I hope it's a nuanced syncretism, but my sort of syncretic practice, my desire would be very much to find a secluded place on Iona where no one can see me, and to fast there for a few days by myself, in the open air. I don't know. Every time I talk to my friends over there, though, they say, "Well, it's not like Canada. You can't just find a place where no one sees you." So I guess you guys don't have bush the same way. Like here, I go out in the bush and there's just no one. And you can go out and there's no one for miles and miles and miles, and it's just forest.
To comfort you, actually, you can on Iona.
Oh,
Except, please don't. My only advice to you is don't try and do it in July or August because Iona almost tilts into the sea with its volume of humanity. There are almost 10,000 people a day visiting the island, and bear in mind it's an island 3 miles long by 1.5 wide. But it's extraordinary. I always say, you know what I say, that I know I will die having not explored the whole island. It's bigger, to misquote C.S. Lewis, who was quoting the philosophers. It's bigger inside than it is out. It's an extraordinary place of wildscape, of what I describe as wildscape, and there are many gnarled hidden corners there. So you'd be amazed. There isn't as much cover as there would be in Canada, but there's plenty of wildscape. There are little tiny clefts of rock. As I say, I will never visit. So you'd find your solitude, and that's of course what you're talking about. The people I'm most interested in, those who went to places like Skellig Michael, are the hermit monks, the early hermit monks in the 7th century. And I love this. I've written a lot about it. That Iona, paradoxically enough, in the 7th century was too busy for them. That is the honest truth. It was too busy for them. It was such a hive of creativity, with people writing books, copying manuscripts in the scriptorium, creating music, arguing about philosophy long into the night under the starlight, doing all manner of things. That these hermit monks who wanted, as they understood it, to hear better the voice of God and to experience martyrdom, they went off to little rocky islets to fast. And I reckon my own theory about this is that they would have been there for 40 days and 40 nights, because that would have been, there were no sources of food there. There was just water, fresh water they needed, and there would always be a well, a spring. But I reckon that they were there to emulate Christ stays in the wilderness 40 days and 40 nights and come back hungry and emaciated to the mother church on Iona to be restored. It was a green and pleasant land in comparison with these gnarled little islets, of which Skellig Michael was very much one. That was where the hermit monks went. So you could do it, Justin.
there you go. Yeah, so that's, I mean, in my own experience, most of this, can you hear me okay? I can see your face. Tell me if you can't hear me. My microphone sometimes is less than ideal.
That's better.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes it just takes a minute of getting talking. It's actually my internet. I'm trying to get a new computer and stuff. But anyway, if I ramble for a moment, my microphone starts to kick in, and so then I can start talking about real things right about now. Um, and and what you're saying resonates for me on a personal level. It was a mountain for me rather than an island. Although I lived on a place called Manitoulin Island, which is the largest freshwater island in the world, and Manitoulin means holy island. So it was called Sacred Island, Holy Island, Manitoulin. And I just moved there from a year ago into the city nearby, but I lived there for 20 years. And Yeah, but I also went to a place called Thunder Mountain, and Thunder Mountain is where we did most of the ceremony. And I have a personal relationship with the mountain. I gave my life. I don't say this sort of thing, especially on camera often, so I won't talk about it too much. But I gave my life to the mountain, and it's a sacred place and a sacred spirit for me. There's an angel of the mountain, perhaps you could say, if we're speaking Christianly. Um, and and I love that sacred place. That connection to the land is so important. And so it interests me to hear how Iona still speaks to people today in poetry. I read about how it spoke to Columba or how it spoke to Adamnan or whatever. But yeah,
And it's
because
that,
Thunder
and
Mountain
to
has
tie in
inspired
with,
me.
to yeah, to tie into that, I
Mhm.
think and I'm really glad that you have brought me onto this, into this. What perhaps matters more than anything to me about, as one of the strands, as one of the central strands of the Celtic Christian path, is this profound reverence for all living things. And that's exemplified for me in the parable, if you like, of St. Kevin and the Blackbird, which I absolutely love. Um, where he finds, where he goes to pray, goes into the rocks down in the southwest of Ireland, and is there with his hands stretched out, and a blackbird finds them in the springtime and uses them as her nest. And of course, he can't move from that spot, so his friends come and assist him, are there for him for however many days that the myth, the story continues. And then the young birds fly into the air, and the mother bird sings her song of gratitude to Kevin for the gift of his hands. But all of that for me is a metaphor. It's a most wonderful parable. And it speaks of this extraordinary love and reverence that there was in the early Celtic Christian world for all created things, which we have lost,
Mm.
which we have lost entirely. And it so urgently needs to be restored. So that's of profound value to me.
Yeah. Well, amen. Amen to that. I agree with that very much. And I wonder if perhaps through our poetry, we should probably get started. I wonder how much of that can come through our poetry. I know the land is where I learned to be a poet. I didn't go to school or anything. Um, but yeah, how about we take turns and you go ahead and start with one,
Surely,
and then I'll start
surely.
with one, and we'll see how long it takes. I don't know if you need to be up at an hour or not, or
No,
no. Well,
I'm
then
all right.
let's just do what
I'm all
happens then.
right. But you have to do me a favor here. You have to do me a favor here, Justin, because I've forgotten which poems I sent you. So I think The Birth of the Foal was one. Is that correct?
Yeah, let me see. I've got the email here. You sent a poem for Anne, The Stars, and The Birth of the Foal.
Right. Well, we'll do them in reverse order, if I may.
You
I'll
can do them
start
in
with,
reverse order, and you can pick different ones. You can do whatever you want.
yeah, yeah. This is The Birth of the Foal.
Yeah.
My eyes still fought with sleep. Out over the fields, mist lay in grey folds. From vague somewheres, curlews rose up with thin trails of crying. Our lanterns rocked in soft globes of yellow. Our feet slushed through the early morning thickness of the grass. She lay on her side, exhausted by her long night. The hot smells of flanks and head and breath ghosted from her spread length. Sunlight cracked from the broken yoke of the skies, ruptured the hills, spangled our eyes and blinded us, flooded the pale glows of our lanterns. There he lay in a pool of his own wetness, four long spindles scrabbling, the bigness of his head, a bag of a body, all struggling to find one another, to join up, to glue into the single flow of a birthright. He fought for the first air of his life, noised like a child. His mother, still raw and torn from the scar of his birth, turned, and her eyes held him. The great harsh softness of her tongue stilled his struggle. We knelt in the wet grass, dumbed by a miracle, by something bigger than the sun. And will I go on and read the others?
Well, do you want to talk about it? Do you want to say what the story is, or you do whatever you want to do?
Yeah, a tiny little bit, just a
Yeah,
thumbnail sketch of it, because
sure.
actually, I didn't experience it.
Hmm.
What happened was I was invited to the birth of the foal, and I was very excited about that. Having had a very rural upbringing, Not quite, I think, as rural as yours sounds. But I was invited to the birth of the foal, but I wasn't there in the end because often, as you will well know, knowing when the birth of a foal will take place is very difficult to work out or where it will be. And it was only afterwards that the farmer, sort of gentleman farmer, told me all about it. And it was months later that, for whatever reason, and you will understand this all too well, what is it that sets something off? We never know. And suddenly the story and the event revisited me and the words poured out. And so, like, as very often, Justin, the poem was written in probably 5 minutes. 5 or 10 minutes sketched on the back of an envelope with a paper with a pencil. Then you mentioned that I think I'd said a poem for Anne, which is um, my former wife's niece, and this was a poem for her when she was a 5-year-old. A poem for Anne. 3 feet small, with dreams as big as Christmas. A cornfield of curls and a smile that would melt a soldier. When you cry, all of you falls to pieces. Everyone comes running to mend you. At night, your eyes look huge. You are afraid of the owl that ghosts your bedroom window. I tell you a story, but you are kingdoms and princes away long before the ending. In the morning, I will bring you blackbirds and put the sun on your pillow. I will tie your laces and pray safe roads for your feet. And I think really it doesn't need much of a postscript to it. It is what it was. It was a poem for a little 5-year-old. Just a tender poem to honor her, and it came again very, very fast. The third one is in a way that I have read them in reverse order, time-wise. This is going back to my childhood. I was very badly bullied at school for having horrible, thick-rimmed glasses. And this was eventually solved for me at the age of whatever, 15, 16, when my parents bought me my first pair of contact lenses. And this is inspired by my coming home with them, with that first pair of lenses in my eyes. The stars. From the age of 5, my sight was smudged like a mole's. I wore tortoiseshell-rimmed glasses that were never quite clean, and the stars looked white and indistinct, vague pearls in a distant heaven. On my 15th birthday, my parents gave me lenses, little cup things that drifted into sight across my irises. Driving home with them that night, I suddenly caught sight of something, got out by the edge of the field and looked, amazed and disbelieving, as if Christ himself had healed my eyes. For the stars were crackling and sparking like new-cut diamonds on the velvet of a jeweller's window, so near and clear I could have stretched and held them, carried them home in my own pocket. That was the gift my parents gave me on my birthday, the stars. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, they were nice when I read them, but it was even better when you read them. The it struck me that in the first and the last of the ones you read, the last lines of each had the same kind of twist to them, where the heavens themselves are contained in this sort of earthly moment. Um, that I can't remember. I loved the one at the end of the birth of the foal, which was something about it's brighter than the sun. Or how
Something
did you
bigger
say?
than the sun, yeah.
Something bigger than the
Something
sun.
bigger than the
Yeah,
sun.
yeah, that's even better. Yeah. And then
I
the
love
one,
last lines.
yeah, the last
I
line's
love
important.
last lines, Justin. I mean, you can't always, it's wonderful to have something that, it's the echo left behind. Less is more. So I think learning to write down, to to uh, to find what I describe. This is my term for it: profound simplicity. That's what, for me, poetry should be in essence. And of course, in our hunt for it, it so often isn't. Often I will overwrite. I think about that wonderful story, which I presume of Robert Frost, who went out and wrote his long intellectual poem um, through a night and was very pleased with himself, pleased as punch, because he saw the dawn coming in the morning. And there he was. He went out onto the terrace of the farm because he was so pleased he'd written through the night. And then he went inside because there were more words. And in 2 minutes, he'd written Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening. And that says it all for me.
Mm.
Profound simplicity. He'd spent the night rehearsing, but the real poem came in the morning.
I wonder if it would have come if you hadn't been rehearsing, though.
I know,
Yeah, yeah. It's a good
indeed.
poem. I say it to my baby to help him sleep. Yeah. Who's whose woods? Stopping by the woods on a snowy evening, right? Is the one you said, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near. Between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. But the only other sound is the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. And these woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. There's a last
Mm.
line.
There's a last line.
Yeah.
You can't beat that last line.
Yeah, and he
It's
just rhymes sleep with sleep and keep, and it's like all this Dr. Seuss style rhymes, but it's just beautiful anyway, somehow. If I wrote it, it
you
wouldn't
read it
sound good.
beautifully. Thank you. That was beautifully read.
Mm.
Lovely. And lovely to have your voice to it. It was very appropriate.
Oh,
Yeah,
thanks.
thank you.
Yeah, I
Thank you.
memorized poetry for fun. I learned that in grade seven, and I've just known it ever since.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Mm,
Uh,
impressive. That's
something
impressive.
something I do for funsies.
And do you remember your own poems, Justin?
Not very well.
Right. Okay.
I'm working on that a bit. The first two that I sent you, which are in meter and rhyme, are actually like written as hymns to hymn tunes. The first one's Ash Grove, and the second one
Ah,
is the tune of Red Red Rose. And I sing them because those are songs that I know. I memorize songs and poetry, and so I had those tunes in my head for the last decade and a half or something like that, singing them all the time. And
right.
then a couple of years ago, when I was in a dark place, a bunch of poems came to me and songs, poems slash songs that teach the virtues, which is something from my experience in ceremony that's really important. They call them the grandfather teachings, what in Christianity we would call virtues. Things like courage and kindness and generosity and things like that. And so a series of 10 virtues came to me with these short quatrains, a quatrain for each one. And I used these folk song tunes from Celtic insular tunes that are just well known tunes and wrote like one quatrain for the tune of the verse and then one for the tune of the chorus so that they can be and I call them sister songs. So they're like really short little songs, but they match, and you can
Ah,
sing them in harmony or not in harmony in antiphonally, which works well online because we do all our stuff online. So like I can sing one verse and then the other person can sing the other verse because you can't sing together on Zoom. It doesn't work. Um, but yeah, maybe I'll read those now since I was just
please.
introducing and
Yeah.
talking about them.
Mm.
So the first one teaches two virtues. The first verse is where are we? Oh, prudence, and then the second one is justice. which are two of the cardinal practical virtues. And I've decided to call them together in this moment Sheep Amidst Wolves as a poem. And I've never actually read them as poetry before, so this is kind of an experiment. I thought I'd give it a shot and see what they do as poems instead of hymns. So, Sheep Amidst Wolves. Sent forth into the world like sheep amidst the wolves, the thoughts of a child, innocent as doves. We grow wiser with time, childish ways left behind, and just like the serpent, add prudence to love. Let the hills hear your voice, ask what is the sacrifice that is pleasing to the Lord our God. Walk humbly, do justice, love kindness, have conscience. O mortal, this is what the Lord has called good. And then this one, which you can do to the tune of Red, Red Rose, is a morning prayer. And it teaches the two virtues of wonder and compassion. In chorus with the waves I sing, lift up my voice in praise, a melody of verdancy to welcome the new day. As far as it is possible, I live with all in peace, and so I'll laugh with those who laugh, and weep with those who weep.
It's lovely.
Thank you. I like writing in meter and verse. I find it really hard.
Mm. It
um,
is really hard.
it is really hard, and I think
Mm.
that's part of what makes it so good. Is that, and I tried to articulate this with some friends, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it as a poet yourself. I think creativity in the way we imagine it in our modern world is often sort of about being able to freely express yourself. But for me, a poem is like carving a statue out of a piece of rock. It's already in there, and I'm trying to find it,
Hmm.
rather
I
than
recognize that.
express something of myself. Not that I can't express something of myself. There's nothing bad about that, and I do, of course. But it's just not what my call and what my vibe, my feeling is with it. And I find the meter in the verse is like what forces me to not say my own personal expression and instead to find what the poem is meant to be. Um, because I have to let go of what I want it to say, and I can come up with all these brilliant lines that would fit lovely, but actually, oh wait a minute, when I think about it, that's never going to rhyme, and I have to let go of it, and I have to find a different one. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
I
I
don't know.
think there's a sense for me of, and I hope this is chiming with what you're intending here to communicate, Justin. There's a sense for me of, for years I've been a leader of writing retreats and workshops where we're working with poetry, attempting to work with poetry. And I'm reticent to say that poetry should be hard won, but I think perhaps I do feel that in our time, this time, that there's a danger of things being written too shoddily, too quickly. For me, and this does definitely go back to what you've just said. I love the sculpture image, that sense of creating, of finding the poem from within the stone or the wood, however one wants to express it. I agree with that wholeheartedly. I just think that there's a battle with words to be done. I think of all of the poems I've written. Well, no, not all of them, but the ones that work, the ones that really truly work. And I know that, and I'm sure you will know the ones with you wholeheartedly work, that are born to the page and that you found in their purity. And often I find it's when I get least in the way. The purest form of a poem comes when I have been least in the way. I also find I'm looking over from where I'm sitting here in the house where Christina and I live on our little tiny island. My studio is out with the house. It's above our garage, and it doesn't have the internet. There's no telephone there. There's no doorbell. I need a place of absolute sanctuary for those times of writing. Whatever it is I'm writing, and I write lots of different things, as you will do, lots of prose as well. But having a place, having a retreat place for that creative process is hugely important. And being able to be there, sometimes I know I will be in there for 6 hours, and I won't have come away with a sane word. The scribbles don't work. So it's a battle with myself, and you will recognize that too. The minute I close the door, it's a battle with myself. I feel that, in a sense, the way I express it sometimes is locking myself in and throwing away the key for the time I choose. And I think that for me, this is important, escaping from the 21st century is fundamentally important, and all the pressures of it. A lot of what I do in retreat space for writing, where I'm with 12 or 14 people or however many who want to join this process, a lot of it is about retreating from the 21st century and throwing it away, and really just listening to ourselves, to our heartbeat, and being in solitary quiet to find words, to do battle with the search for words. That is really, really important to me, because I think that our lives are too loud. That without doubt, and I'm sure you'll recognize that, my word as a Quaker and as a person of faith, and I feel it fundamentally, that our world is just too busy and too loud. And really, more and more, you have to take people and yourself out of that busy world and find what I call deep quiet, go into deep, deep quiet. And that can be hard won. And I suppose Iona, just as a postscript, Iona is one of the places where I find, so when you talked about going away there, finding a sacred place on the island and being there for 3 days of fasting, well, I recognize that. I go there to find that's the ultimate well of words for me. But sorry, that's enough for me.
Well, don't apologize. Yeah, don't apologize. I'm very happy for you to keep sharing. There's no need to apologize at all. I hope you can hear me yet. I'm still rambling for a moment to get my microphone working. Um, it's a terrible thing for someone who does so many recordings on Zoom to have a Zoom that doesn't work well. Sometimes God has a ironic sense of humor. But I think what you were just talking about is a good segue into maybe my third poem, which uh, is written from the perspective of someone sitting on a rock in the forest meditating. Um, and that's something I've done a lot of. So it was not something that I wrote about from lack of experience, but it is something that I wrote not in the forest sitting on a rock, but actually in between calls at the call center while I was bored. And I was just freestyle writing with my keyboard in the document. I wasn't even trying to make it into poetry. I was just writing free flow prose, so that I didn't lose my mind as I was answering customer service calls. And I decided to chop it up into poetry, and then I liked it, and then over the years I've fiddled with it, and so it's been around for a few years, and I've tweaked it lots, but it's also an ironic one in the sense that it's about trying to find God in the forest, and it was written at a computer in a call center. It also interestingly represents perhaps a different period in my spirituality, which I might briefly mention, because There's a philosophical question which I've addressed in detail in some other videos and writings, especially with my friend Jesse Hake, as we've talked about what's called in Christianity the atemporal fall from Eden, or the idea that time, Adam and Eve, when they fell from Eden, they fell into time, and that eternity is our home and our destiny, and time is the thing that we're not supposed to be in, but we're stuck in. And it's an old Christian idea, and it's one that I don't actually really believe. um, but I love to think about it because it has all kinds of wonderful. It gets my mind going, and it, even though I don't believe it, I think it's beautiful in a way as poetry, and it helps explore what it means to be human and what it means to be in time, because it is, time does get kill us all in the end. it's it's the one thing that kills everyone. um, and the longer we live, the harder things get in many ways. Not always, but in many ways. And so there is some poetic truth to it, even though it's not a theology that I adhere to myself. Um, and I wrote this poem before I knew anything about all that theology. I just sort of intuited it. And then later on, I studied the theology and changed my mind. So here we are with a poem that I still find beautiful and resonate with, but I don't actually agree with the theology necessarily. Although I still do, if I'm honest, for some reason. And it's called In Lament of Time. When the darkness of time clouds my vision and leaves damp and withered roses on my doorstep, I cannot help but frantically search behind the veil of reality in hopes of finding something more meaningful than the tired old clock, than the tired old song my clock sings every day. Time is a burden imposed upon mortals. It is the missing piece of divinity we never won from the garden, the true curse of Adam. How I long to dance in the infinite and skip merrily from future to past and back again to the present. How I long to be free and wander the unmade realms of possibility, existing eternally in the waters of the deep. If only I could hover over water like the Spirit. If only, like wisdom herself, I could sing with the angels and the morning stars. At the beginning of time, at the end of time. Then I would understand my own nature. Then I would be truly free. Then and only then I would know peace and depth and Christ. And so I will sit here and try to be present. I will try to be fully in this moment, in the hopes that I may slip into what has never been, or even what never will be, and stumble my way up the ladder to heaven, to join the angels and the saints. And sometimes it works. Sometimes I taste the sweet fruit of heaven. Sometimes I wrestle with God and receive a new name. Sometimes, just for a fleeting moment, I glimpse eternity, even though it leaves me wounded. Yet that fleeting moment of eternity is more than my injury, is more than my life, is more than all my ancestors combined. It is bliss and sorrow, and utterly ineffable, and I love it completely, and I long for it deep inside. It calls to me the deep, the nothingness of all, and I hear it whisper secrets of love and the mysteries of old, as I sit here on my rock, listening to the song of the trees, far, from any clock.
Mm. Mm.
Mm.
It's a beautiful return. I love that return to the forest. That's a magnificent last. Those are magnificent last lines, Justin. Beautiful. It's a
Thank you,
lovely.
Ken.
It's a wonderful wrestling with time. Just to ask you, if I may, are you familiar with a? Are you familiar with my favorite poem in this world is by Wallace Stevens,
Mm.
the great American poet. Sunday Morning.
No, I don't
Oh
know it.
well, I would urge you.
Can we read it? Is it long?
Yes, it's long.
Oh, it's long. Okay, never mind. I was going to Google it, but if it's long, we won't have time.
It really is long.
Yeah, yeah.
And what I would urge you to do, and the listeners too, if they don't know Sunday Morning, read it aloud. It's it's uh, it's not for no reason that I describe it as the most beautiful poem in the English language to me, because he's in love with language itself. Um, all his wrestlings, all his philosophical wrestlings, like yours with time, past, present, and future, um, and with faith as well, which he's doing within the poem.
Mm.
Uh, I can never quite work out where he is by the end of it, but it's a most beautiful thing to behold and to listen to. It's a magnificent piece of writing. Anyway, but thank you for in bringing that to mind, and thank you for all that offers us. It's
Yeah,
lovely.
yeah, it's my pleasure. It's been a lovely time to chat together. We didn't know what would happen, but I'm well pleased with where we've ended up. Yeah. Is there anything else that's on your heart? We've got a little bit of time if we want it, um, but we don't have to. And I like to always offer whoever I'm talking with. Can you hear me? I like to offer
Yes, I can,
whoever I'm
Justin.
speaking
Yeah.
with the chance to jump in with anything more. If you have anything that you didn't get to say yet, or that you thought about later, or that you wish everyone in the world would know, or something like that.
Well, I suppose just
Yeah.
with your time, coming back to what you were saying about time and what you're wrestling with time,
Mm.
and what I was talking about with my wrestling with 21st centuryness
Yeah.
and all the burdens of that, and I would return to that thin place as it's described, as you will well know, that thin place of Iona, that Hebridean island, because for however it works, Justin, I find that whenever I return to Iona, I somehow or other, well, it's not active, it's passive. Those burdens of time and those burdens of 21st centuryness are lifted.
Mm.
And for me, it's about becoming a child again. That's what it feels like. When I go, as I hope you will do one day, when I turn at the gate on the west side of the island and start making my way down towards St. Columba's Bay, where the saint landed in whatever it was, 563 AD or whatever. I never get it right. When I turn and make that walk, what happens is miraculous. I feel that all the labels that I carry and all the things that I am carrying in my heart, all that 21st centuryness is blown out of me. And I'm back to a beginning place. And I'm small because I'm small under the huge wind of the West Coast. And I could be 5 years old again.
Mm.
And that's important. I find words coming back to me, words to be written down, what might eventually become a poem. And it's as though I haven't written before. You're not carrying the burden of all that you've written before, because even that can be a burden. And it's blown out. And it's that going back into childlikeness again.
Mm.
And for me, it happens most profoundly. It can be other places of too, of course. It might be a formal church building, or it might be a forest with the rock. Certainly, it might be those things, but more often than anything else, it's Iona. That's all I wanted to say.
Well, I don't know what else we would need to say. So thank you so very much for that, and for your time, and for your poems, and for the blessing of your heart that you've shared. It's been a valuable time.
Well, thank you for yours, Justin,
Yeah.
and for sharing. I feel, to talk about it in those terms, I feel I've grown older.
There you go. You've become a child and you've grown older at the same time. That's the challenge. That's the task, right? To be old and wise and young and innocent. But may we
So
all be
thank you.
so. Yeah. All right. Well, you take care, Kenneth. It's been great.
It has. Thank you.
All right. You remembered. You didn't have to hang up.
Yeah. I'm learning.
There you go.
I'm learning.
Yeah. It felt like a
Thanks for that.
natural
That was a
lull,
privilege.
and so I thought I'd end the recording there. But no, I love this. This was great. Yeah.
Well, thank you for doing it. I really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
You
Thank
should
you.
come to chapel sometime. Do you know what I mean by that? Do you know about our community and everything?
Tell me, no, tell me how that would, tell me how it works. How would
So
we come to, could Christina and I do that?
definitely.
Great.
Yeah, so chapel's free.
Right.
You don't have to register. You just show up and click the link. And it happens twice a week on Mondays at 4 p.m. Eastern, which is 9, I think, for you.
Yeah.
And then on Saturdays at 11 Eastern, which I think would be 8. No, sorry, 4 for you, I think. Yeah, because you're 5 hours out, just like Tony. And I don't
Okay.
always lead
Right.
chapel. So what it is, I told you when it happens, but I didn't tell you what it is. What it is we gather together for a few minutes of chatting, and so that people don't have to be really super punctual. So the first 15 minutes we just chat and get to know each other. And catch up and talk about the weather, which is more interesting with an international group of people because you'll have people in New Zealand, in the UK, and Canada, and wherever, right? So the weather becomes a more interesting topic. And then whoever is leading picks a couple readings ahead of time of their own choice. Sometimes they're often Christian. We're sort of Christianly centered, but we're interspiritually minded at the same time.
Nice.
And
Good.
so whatever volunteer is leading gets to pick whatever they want, and it'll be different every time. And usually there's one reading, and then we have 15 minutes of silence, and then we'll have a couple more readings, and then we just chat like you and I did here. So it's almost the same thing we did, except the readings are all sort of at the beginning, and then we talk instead of reading our poems back and forth, but same kind of idea. And it's usually a small group, 5 to 10 people sort of thing show up. And deep, magical, beautiful, poetic things happen sometimes. And I think you'd fit in really well. And it's free, so you can just show up if you want.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I can give you a link in an email to the web page with the details if you want. But
Yeah, that would be valuable.
yeah,
Thanks a
yeah,
lot. I think
yeah.
that'd be valuable.
Hmm.
I'd love to do that. And yeah, perhaps that's something, Christina can do with me. We're feeling spiritually challenged at the moment without foisting a long story on you. Our church is really in the process of dying here on the island,
Many
which is
others.
very sad, and it's happening in so many other places. So we're in a churchless on a churchless island, and I think we miss something deeper. Yeah, we miss
Well, I hope.
something real with and talking.
Yeah, I hope you come to Temple because it sounds like it's exactly what you're needing right now. We serve that purpose for many people who, myself, when I lived, especially on Manitoulin, now that I'm in the city, there's more people around. But on the island, I mean, I was in the largest town around. So Manitoulin, unlike Iona, is uh, maybe 250 kilometers across.
Oh,
Um,
hell, right, okay.
Right. So on the island, there are large lakes with islands on them that are acres large. Like you can have several camps on an island, on a lake, on an island, on a lake. Um, because of the
Right.
Great Lakes and the crazy water. We have so much water here. Everywhere's rivers and stuff. Um, I can't remember
Which
why I
lake
was.
is it on? Which lake is it
Yeah,
on?
I'm on Lake Huron.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay. And which was Manitoulin on?
Or sorry, Manitoulin is on Lake Huron. Yeah.
It's
I'm
on
in
Lake
this. I'm
Huron.
in the city on the mainland now, so I'm not on a lake. But
Ah,
Huron's the closest Great Lake to where I am. Sudbury, the city, though they call it the city of 1,000 lakes. So the city is built around lakes. There's no grid because there's too many lakes and rocky outcroppings. So it's stone and lakes everywhere, and it's a mining industry. It's like a whole different kind of
right.
kind of northern city.
One of my favorite. I did lecture twice. Lecture in spring term at somewhere called Alma College, which is in the dead center of Michigan.
Oh, okay, okay. That would
And
be similar-ish. Yeah.
I twice
Mhm.
went up to the Upper Peninsula. So we were on Lake Superior there, and I just absolutely adored Lake Superior. And you will know of the island there. Um, oh, it's gone from my head. It doesn't matter. It's the largest island on Lake Superior, and you can take a boat to that from the Upper Peninsula. Oh, it takes, I think, 3 hours to get out to to, to the
You
island.
didn't go to Manitoulin? Like, did you leave from Tobermory at the end of the peninsula?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that would be Manitoulin. That's my island. Um, Lake
Ah,
Superior. I don't think it has a large island like Manitoulin. It has many islands. It's a huge lake, but I don't think it has a big one like Manitoulin. Manitoulin's an anomaly. And so you were probably on Manitoulin, is my guess. But I don't know if
oh, I
maybe
haven't been. Oh, sadly, I haven't. I
no.
haven't been to it,
Oh,
Justin.
okay. Oh, okay.
I've only been to the top of the Upper Peninsula
Right.
and looked out there. I must send you. I will send you as a present a poem about that was written inspired by it.
Oh, sure.
Um,
Yeah, that'd be great.
it
Hmm.
yeah. Anyway, I know you will have busyness ahead of you, so
Nice.
thank you for giving up precious time, and it was really valuable. It's exciting, and I hope. And if you do manage to get to the west coast of Scotland, come and visit us where we are in our little island, and it'd be nice to show you Iona,
Ooh,
um,
too very
to
much.
go over
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. And before we hang up, can you email me your bio and all the links that you want to include?
I will.
And go ahead and include whatever
Mm-hmm.
you want. I do that for everybody. That's part of
Thanks
the
a lot.
process. So just send an email with your bio, what you want me to say. This is Kenneth, everything you want to say, and then some links. I might change around how I fit the links on the website or
Of
whatever, but
course.
I'll
Sure.
I'll include
Yeah.
whatever I can and help get the word out about your book and everything, of course. So
Thanks so much.
yeah. All right. Well, take care, Kenneth. We'll see you sometime, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
Blessings on the path.
Yeah. Thank
Bye.
you.